So yesterday I did a video on the Lord's Supper, communion, Eucharist, whatever you want to call it. Is it the flesh and blood or is it just bread and wine? I'll put the video up there. Um, over here, here, my on-air sign is lit today. That's one of the things that hopefully that clears up any confusion that my Baptist friend pointed out to me. Um, But he actually said he found some of my arguments to be convincing, and he wanted me to address this point that Leighton Flowers brought up towards the end of his video. So let's go ahead and address this real quick.
But I asked him when Baptists like myself take the Lord's Supper, which I think I'm going to do here at the candlelight dinner. We usually do a Lord's Supper. Do you believe the substances are literal that we as Baptists are eating, or do you only believe that's in the Catholic Church? In other words, if I'm a true Christian and it requires me to eat of the flesh and blood of Jesus in the whatever kind of literal you mean way, I've never had Lord's Supper outside of the Baptist church. I've never had the Lord's Supper at a Catholic church. So am I not alive? Am I dead spiritually? Am I going to hell? Because some of your videos seem to kind of imply the importance of this as being so significant that you have to eat from the Mass of the Catholic Church in order to live. Again, that's a question I have for you. This is why I wanted a discussion with you in person, because then I could push on those actual points. If I don't take Catholic Mass, am I going to hell? Am I not spiritually alive? Or do you believe that when Baptists with a genuine heart who are raised Baptists all their life, being taught what we believe about John 6 and the Lord's Supper, that because of our being duped or being, taught wrongly in I'm assuming you believe our history is wrong and those kinds of things. Is there some kind of a substantive change in the Baptist church? What about a Catholic who visits a Baptist church and believes in transubstantiation and really believes John 6 the way you do? But maybe a Baptist church is the only one in his area. There's a lot of people who live overseas who only have Protestant churches in their area. They don't have a Catholic church around them. Do they believe that if you go to the Lord's Supper in a Baptist church, that it, like Mass, somehow supernatural and mysteriously changes the substances into the blood and body of Jesus? What if they're literally in there, they believe it. They really have this faith that that's what's happening. Are they saved too by that? I don't know. These are just kind of questions. I just don't know. I like to look at the implications of someone's beliefs.
So basically, what my Protestant friend is asking is, in my view, since I'm saying that Adam ate death, the life is in the blood of Jesus, you have to drink the blood of Jesus, right? In order to counteract the death that Adam ate. And again, this isn't my personal view, but this is what I think the view being expressed by John and Paul is. In light of that, what do you make of a Baptist who doesn't believe that it's the body and blood? And I think you would have to go to John 6. Because in John 6, there are people who say this is a difficult teaching, and so they walk away. Now, the disciples, Jesus says to them, hey, you want to walk away too? And they say, no, we know that in your words are life. So even they seem to be uncomfortable with it, but they're like, where else are we going to go? So I don't think you have to be comfortable with it. I think you have to be open to it. If you were a person who says, if this is in fact the body and blood, then I'm not doing it, then I would say you've got a problem on your hands. But as long as you're open to and say, whatever God is doing to and through the elements or to and through me during the process, as long as you're open to that, I don't think it matters where you take it. I mean, if you look at 1 Corinthians 10 and 11, and that's where a lot of my points came from, and even if you look at John 6, it's not about who gives you the bread and the wine. So if you're a Baptist and you happen to believe that this is in fact the body and blood, I would argue that God would do the work through you, no matter who you receive the bread and the wine from. I would even go so far as to say you could serve it yourself. You could read the blessing yourself. Let's say you were in a communist country where there are no churches around you, but you happen to get your hands on a Bible and you believe this. You could probably would think, I don't know what the Catholics would say, but you could do this yourself and God could do this through you. You wouldn't even need to have it done through an official bishop or pastor. Now, if you have that option, obviously that would be preferable because you're doing it with other people and you're doing it in a more structured way, I guess. But the way that it's being done in First Corinthians 11 isn't very structured. That's what Paul is addressing, and the structure that he wants them to bring through it is not to get somebody else to administer it, but for it to be done with a proper perspective by the individuals who are doing it. And so as long as you're partaking with a proper perspective, saying, hey, I'm open to whatever God is doing to and through the elements and to and through me, I would think you'd be okay. But again, I'm not a Christian, so I wouldn't say. You might want to look into it and see what the Catholic teaching is on it. But my concern with some of the Catholic teachings, and yesterday I pointed out that the Catholics have better explanations for things, but there are also places where I think the Catholic Church goes too far, or where the Catholics have kind of changed what they've taught over the years, gone back and forth on some things. So I'm not saying that obviously I'm biblical anarchy. The Catholic Church is not the be all end all, right? There are things that I think they get wrong. It's just that the basic underlying structure of their argument started to be developed in that culture, okay? And so even though I disagree vehemently with the Catholic Church on the Trinity, I can see how they got to their conclusion. I think they reached the wrong one, but I can follow it. With the Protestants, you can't because they just showed up on the scene in the 1500s and said, we're keeping this. We're good with this. We're okay with this. We're keeping it. So when they go to defend the Trinity, they have to go back to the Catholic defenses of the Trinity, right? Now, they write their own today. James White, I've read his book on the Trinity. There's another one, I can't remember who it is. I read his book on the Trinity as well. So they do make their own defenses today. I'm not saying they don't, but these are modern defenses, right? If you want to really follow the logic, you have to go back to the Catholic Church. And some of these things the Protestants held on to, you can argue they're right or wrong, but you can't really argue it from a Protestant perspective. You have to argue it from a Catholic perspective because they've been interpreting these texts straight out the gate, like from the second century at least. They've been interpreting these texts, and often they reach a better conclusion, a better interpretation of the text, simply because they interpreted the text in the environment that it's written in. And I make this point with Tertullian all the time, who says this is what the Greeks call the logos, right? This is why we say in the beginning was the logos. So he's tying it back to the Greek philosophical view of the logos, which I argue is at loggerheads with the Trinity. But he's also advancing it past the Greek view of the logos. So he's doing something more with it, but he is interpreting it through that lens. And so I can take his interpretation, I should, a lot more seriously than somebody like James White, who is picking and choosing church fathers and going with them and ignoring ones that he disagrees with, right? Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it for whatever it's worth. This is for a friend of mine who wanted my thoughts. There they are. I don't know what to tell you. You can let me know in the comments, or you can message me again if you'd like, if you agree or disagree. And I understand why some of you message me instead of commenting, and I do not blame you at all. If you're more comfortable messaging me, you can follow me on Facebook and message me there. But you can also let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel. But whatever you do, don't just sit there. Do something.